Wednesday, January 31st, 2024. You are listening to the Daly Dose Sports Podcast, and I am your host, Clint Daly, coming to you from the Mile High City here in Denver, Colorado, and we are back for another week of talking sports with a dose of common sense. Hey, happy Wednesday to you. Hope your week is going well. Hope it's off to a good start. Hope you, your family, and your friends are all staying strong and staying healthy right now, and I hope that you enjoyed those NFL championship games. In fact, we don't have time to waste today. Let's go ahead and jump in to what we learned from those games that determined the Super Bowl this past Sunday. And we learned that the NFL has somehow managed to get two teams to Super Bowl 58 that I really couldn't care less about. The number one seeds, they don't always make it to the big game. But honestly, it did look like the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers were kind of on that collision course, didn't it? They had looked like the best teams all season. And that would have been a really compelling matchup. But that's not how things work. And despite the Super Bowl logo predicting both some blue and some purple in it, because if the NFL is scripted, the least they can do is tip us off by showing the colors of the teams going to be in the Super Bowl in the Super Bowl logo, right? Of course. Well, it looks like it's going to be an all-red Super Bowl logo instead, because the Kansas City Chiefs upset the Baltimore Ravens on the road 17-10 in a game that honestly didn't feel that close. Seemed like the Chiefs were in control all day. And then the San Francisco 49ers made a furious comeback to beat the Detroit Lions 34-31 in advance. Well, now the scripted conspiracy theory guys are racing to recolor their logos with magic markers. And we get a Super Bowl between two teams and two fan bases that I personally hate. Well done, NFL. Not sure how you managed to do that, but you did. I'll say this. I'm really glad that dry January will be over in time for this hideous game, because I don't even want to watch it. I just hope the game itself is entertaining, because I personally am bitter party of one. We did also learn that the Baltimore Ravens just might have been, how do I say this, a little bit fake. Look, I'm not trying to bag on the Ravens that much. Maybe I am. But doesn't it seem like we've seen this story before? The Ravens can't run the ball effectively, except for quarterback Lamar Jackson. Oh, also, and his receivers aren't very good. Okay, well, that might work in the regular season, but in the playoffs, teams put a stop to that real quick. If you can't run the ball, good luck. On Sunday, the Ravens barely even tried to run the ball. But even then, they had zero success. The Ravens had 16 rushing attempts all day for 81 yards, but that's kind of deceiving, because Lamar Jackson had 8 of those and had 54 yards on those attempts. So outside of their quarterback, the Ravens rushed 8 times for 27 yards. Hey, what could go wrong, right? You establish zero run game, and then you ask Lamar Jackson to throw the ball all over the place, but who's he throwing to? The only receiver they have is Zay Flowers. Nelson Aguilar and Odell Beckham Jr., they're about 5 years past when they should have retired. Those two contributed nothing whatsoever. Was Lamar good? No, he wasn't. Is playoff Lamar real? Yeah, it kind of is. Is it entirely his fault? No, because the Ravens don't help him out, and they didn't help him out again on Sunday. We also learned that when you have some serious weapons around you, you don't have to be great. Hey, San Francisco 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy, once again, he looked very average for a good portion of that game. Through the first half, despite having all of those weapons, everybody around him, Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Juwan Jennings, Purdy A guy that wasn't drafted until the very last pick of the 2022 NFL draft kind of looked like a draft bust, which is kind of insane to say. But once again, he couldn't hit an open receiver to save his life. He had just 93 passing yards at halftime. But then the help starts kicking in, and the horses take over. And Purdy made a few good plays, with his legs mostly, and we saw just how powerful that Niners team can be. San Francisco rolled off 27 second-half points, and Purdy's stats actually look really good. He finishes the game with nearly 300 yards and some really big runs, but it must be nice to dump those 2-yard passes off and let those guys do all the work. But hey, it is working. Congrats to Brock Purdy and the San Francisco 49ers. Didn't look that great for a while, but it worked. We also learned that while the Kansas City Chiefs are not the team that they used to be, and many were quick to pile dirt on them, the combination of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce with a coach like Andy Reid, that's still a lot of firepower. Against that vaunted Baltimore Ravens defense, the Chiefs carved them up on their first 2 possessions of the game. They went 86 yards, and then they went 75 yards, and they put that Baltimore defense on their heels on the day against what we know is a pretty good Baltimore defense without starting left guard Joe Thuney. And in a downpour, the Chiefs still managed to control the game. They go 8 of 18 on third down conversions. Hey, that is where you make your money as a quarterback. And Patrick Mahomes absolutely made his money all day on Sunday. Mahomes goes 30 for 39 with 241 yards and a touchdown. And like I said earlier, I know the final score was close, 17-10, but that game was never in doubt. It never felt like Baltimore really was a threat to win it. And that is a credit to that group at Kansas City that is still very, very good. Despite not having as much as they did, no, they're still capable of winning the Super Bowl. I learned personally that the Denver Broncos are at least partially responsible for the San Francisco 49ers' success. I get to remember that every single time I see the Niners have success. Because, of course, it was the Broncos that bypassed a young coach by the name of Kyle Shanahan because they wanted to go get a guy named Vance Joseph. Yeah, that worked out well. Of course, Shanahan then teamed up with general manager and former Broncos safety John Lynch to create one of the deepest and most talented rosters in the NFL. I sure am glad that we didn't take Kyle Shanahan. That's worked out really, really well for us. I'm so glad we don't have to deal with, all of the winning. That's nice. That would get old real fast. Thanks, Bronco Brain Trust. Well done. And of course, we did learn that the Detroit Lions are just not capable of having nice things. The Lions jumped on top of the San Francisco 49ers 24-7 in the first half, and it actually could have been more. The Lions completely dominated the Niners. They racked up 280 first half yards. They were running the ball. They were completely controlling the game. And then at halftime, I don't know, they remembered that they are, in fact, the Detroit Lions. They remembered that they are the franchise that ruined Barry Sanders. They are the franchise that ruined Calvin Johnson. They are the franchise that went 0-16. They are the franchise that wrecks our Thanksgivings every year. And it was like all those things just hit them at once. The Lions gave up 27 straight points to open the second half, and they just looked like the moment was just too big for them. They fumbled the ball. They dropped passes. They had poor throws. They missed assignments. Their coach sometimes made odd decisions. Deflected passes just magically ended up in opponents' arms. Honestly, it was like watching those 1980s Denver Broncos Super Bowls. They tried to squeeze the ball so hard, it just slipped out. Oh, I know that right now we're hearing how the Lions are going to be back next year with a vengeance. I know. But, I mean, you're the Lions. You can't have nice things. Okay, YouTube, make sure you go over and check out the rest of the podcast this week. We have a few more things that we learned from the week in the NFL, but then we are going to jump into some news. We have some news in the NBA. We have some news in the NFL. We have some news in college football. And then we are actually handing out some end-of-year NFL awards. And we have our Daly Dose Top 5. Like we just talked about, the Detroit Lions actually made some history this year. But we're going to talk about a few other teams that are hoping to make some history of their own very, very soon. So I encourage you, go over and check out the rest of the podcast. I will leave a link here in the comments on YouTube for you. Hope you all are doing well. I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great week.